Nigeria, I am Becky Badujemu. It's another exciting edition of Newsline. The stories this week are intense. Back to back, there's no dull moment. Rape is a burning topic at the moment. Apart from an update on the rape and murder saga of an undergraduate called Uwa in Benin, we are opening files for new cases of that magnitude from Lagos, Jigawa and Ibadan. The crime seems to be on the rise. In the meantime, there's this riveting tale about a woman who fell into labor, and instead of hobbling her way to the hospital, she settled for the nearest bush. The reasons why she picked that location and the aftermath of the delivery will leave you dumbstruck. Something else that will make you speechless is the arrest of a suspect who allegedly sold human parts for money rituals. The program will not be complete until we pay tribute to the late reggae icon who passed on recently. Like I said, it's a packet like no other. Stay through the news segment and join me when I return. Over to Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak.
Certainly, we will return back to you, Becky, and good to see you. Welcome to the news here in Abuja, and we begin from the presidency. The presidency says President Muhammadu Buhari has not and will never be a rubber stamp in the discharge of his responsibility regarding appointments into offices. The presidency, in a statement, explained that the president has a duty to ensure that all such appointments meet the requirements of the Constitution and necessary security screenings. It reminded the public about the recent incident of some ministers who did not undertake the compulsory National Youth Service. In the specific case of the acting president of the Court of Appeal, Justice M.S. Dangbam Mensam, the statutory regulatory time of her acting period has not lapsed and should not be regarded as an issue of ethnicity or religion. The statement therefore warned against stampeding the president in carrying out his constitutional duty in this respect. And with the ease of lockdown due to COVID-19, some Christian worshippers this Sunday converged on various churches to observe the first Sunday service in the month of June, and that's after about spending weeks without group worship. Omenka Marachukwu reports that there was high-level compliance with the guidelines in churches he visited here in the FCT.
At the First Baptist Church, worshippers observed the use of hand sanitizers, wearing of face masks and adherence of social distancing. The worshippers were full of praises for God's protection during this period of pandemic.
The church actually is an ally to the government. We are promoting what the government is actually saying by reminding our people what their obligations are. So it was fantastic. I feel great that we are back to church.
Like the church will not open again, but God has intervened, we have opened. And I believe that the opening of the church will bring healing to Nigeria.
Methodist Archbishop of Abuja, Most Reverend Joseph Oche, and Archbishop John Praise Daniel reminded Christians to always be prayerful at all times.
If anybody says there is no COVID-19, that person is a fool, because you have ears to hear, you have eyes to see, and you see people dying like chickens. And so it is a real thing that is happening. But thank God that God's power is more than any other power.
So there are spiritual things first before they become physical. And so if we attack it spiritually from the church with prayer and commitment, we believe that we'll all have victory. So indeed, we want to thank God for the government, and we want to thank God for everyone that has cooperated.
They have been ministering online, but I've not been seeing their faces. But today I will see their faces and know how they are faring. So we are glad.
Religious activities have been under lockdown since March this year to curtail the spread of coronavirus in Nigeria. In Abuja, Omenka Marachukwu, NTA News.
And death toll from coronavirus globally surpasses 400,000 as Brazil government stops publishing COVID-19 deaths and infections. Now, this and more on Global Update on Coronavirus with Adebola Brookslyn Sunday.
In less than 24 hours that Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro threatened to pull his country out of the World Health Organization, Bolsonaro has ordered the removal of COVID-19 data of the country from public view. He said the cumulative data did not reflect the current picture of Brazil and that the health ministry will henceforth be reporting cases and deaths on a 24-hour basis. In the meantime, Shanghai has begun to test its potential antibody treatment against the novel coronavirus in healthy people. The experimental drug Joso-16 is expected to begin human study in the United States later this month. And on the Coronavirus Resource Center dashboard of Johns Hopkins University at about 7 p.m. local time, 7,036,177 positive cases of COVID-19 have been confirmed globally. From this figure, 402,832 fatalities have been reported, while 3,445,347 of those infected have recovered. Data published by the Africa Center for Disease Control shows that 183,474 persons have been infected with coronavirus on the continent. From this number, 5,041 have died, while 81,367 people have recovered from the virus. Back home, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control announced 389 new confirmed cases of coronavirus in the country, bringing the total number to 12,233. So far, 3,826 people have recovered and have been discharged, while 342 fatalities have been recorded.
Debola Brookslyn Sunday there bringing us the global update on COVID-19. And we turn our attention now to Sokoto, where the State Task Force on COVID-19 has confirmed the discharge of the remaining 5 patients in its isolation centers. Chairman of the Task Force and Commissioner for Health, Dr. Mohammed Ali Nyame, gave the confirmation while briefing newsmen in Sokoto. Sheikh Mohammed Dati reports.
Was among states that recorded a large number of COVID-19 cases in the country. The state recorded 115 confirmed cases, out of which 101 confirmed by discharge, with 14 deaths recorded. Chairman, Task Force Committee on COVID-19 and Commissioner for Health, Muhammad Ali Nami, said the success story of discharging the remaining 5 patients was based on the WHO's guidelines.
Patients that were taken care in our isolation center, they have been discharged. It will not be something strange for us to have positive cases in the future because every day we are doing tests. Every day we product. Even today, there are some samples that are in the lab and we are awaiting the result of those samples.
8 out of the 23 local governments in the state were affected by the pandemic, with Wamoko local government having the highest number of cases. Even though for days Sokoto did not record any new case, the Task Force Committee maintained that samples of suspected cases will continue to be taken for testing. Dr. Enami attributed the successes recorded to commitment of government, medical personnel, and volunteer groups in the state. Despite this development, easing of restrictions caused by the pandemic is dependent on directives of the federal and state governments. In Sokoto, Sheikh Muhammad Detti, NTA News.
And part of ongoing efforts towards managing the coronavirus pandemic is the quest for homegrown remedies that could either treat symptoms or boost immunity against the virus. Now, in our next report, Asabe Tanimo Williams gives us insight into efforts made so far by the federal government in this regard.
Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, during one of the media briefing, disclosed that the federal government is making headway in getting local cures for the pandemic in Nigeria. Adding that, the Complementary and Alternative Medicine Department of the Federal Ministry of Health has forwarded some of the claims for COVID-19 cure to the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC.
The traditionalists may depend on antidotal evidence. That is what hearsay, my grandfather did this, my mother did this. But for us in medicine, before I will tell you that Ogbo or whatever name you call it actually helps in curing this or helps in preventing this disease, I must be able to demonstrate to you through some studies that what they call clinical studies.
In a related development, the leadership of NAFDAC met with 35 players in the herbal and alternative medicine sector as part of efforts to find locally made treatments to the coronavirus pandemic. Interestingly, all the ingredients that make up the formulations of these claims are medicinal plants that are widely used as food materials and medicines such as garlic, onions, and ginger. Asabete Williams, NTA News.
Now, like most countries of the world, Nigeria has been impacted by COVID-19. But regardless, the country's national response strategy has attracted international recognition, and that includes the World Health Organization. But after weeks of total lockdown, which was eased with strict protocols, our correspondent Deborah Agbola engaged some residents of the FCT on how the period affected them and, of course, living with the ease of lockdown.
The nation has been grappling with socio-political, economic and religious issues that seem unusual in the life of the nation.
I miss many things concerning business that is going around. All the economics is down.
I thought this was a joke until we recorded the first case in Nigeria.
Various measures such as lockdown, quarantine, self-isolation, curfew and interstate travel ban became popular among the people to the extent that it became a daily term in the nation's media. In fact, the news is not completed without the usage of some of these terms to buttress the impact of the disease and the steps being taken to curtail it. Hope of normalcy is what the people are looking forward to.
You know, it has been very tough. It's just that when you have hope in God, you believe in God and you put your trust in Him, you know, He just makes a way.
Far or near, what should the people prepare for after COVID-19?
We are actually in the era of digital economy. So it is advised that individuals should look away from government jobs and rather take advantage of the technological innovation to bring about business and economic activities to take them out of poverty.
The good news for now is Nigeria is among the countries that is tackling this scourge with all vigor and policies. Deborah Agbola, NTA News.
And the police have continued its gradual process of engaging the public ahead of the community policing policy aimed at enhancing internal security. It is in this regard that female officers of the Nigeria Police Force extended humanitarian gestures to about 1,500 persons in Kuruduma, Galadimawa and KT communities, as well as 2 police barracks, all in the FCT. Here is Francis Form with the rest of the story. We do apologize. Our report is not ready. We'll bring it as soon as Francis Form is ready with it. But in other stories, African ministers responsible for arts, culture and heritage rose from a meeting on how to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic with an 8-point communique which addressed concerns on how the pandemic negatively impacted this sector. Anthony Forson reports. All right, not to worry. We'll bring you all the stories as soon as we get them. It does happen. Let's look at security matters now. And scores of armed bandits have been neutralized and their weapons destroyed in air strikes executed by air component of Operation Hadirindaji at 2 separate bandit camps, Tibiri and Manyam Zurmi local government areas of Zamfara State. Now, a statement signed by the Coordinator Defense Media Operations, Major General John Eneche. This was recorded on June 6, 2020, as part of offensive operations to rid the northwest and north central states of armed banditry. Now, the air interdiction mission at Tibiri, located 15 kilometers east of Zurumi, was executed after credible human intelligence reports. 2 Nigerian Air Force attack helicopters were then dispatched scoring accurate hits on the target area, leading to the destruction of the structures with stored weapons and ammunition, and also neutralized the bandits in their huts and surrounding bushes. The attack helicopters conducted similar airstrikes on another camp south of Maya, which also resulted in the killing of more armed bandits, including some of their leaders as they gathered for a meeting at the location. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, commends the air component of Operation Hadirin Daji for their professionalism. All right, now the attention of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development has been drawn to the fake news trending on social media that President Muhammadu Buhari will on June 12 broadcast to the nation the absorption of NPA volunteers Batch A into the Federal Civil Service. The ministry hereby calls on the public to disregard the message and consider it as fake news. A statement by the Deputy Director Information of the ministry, Rhoda Ishaq Ilya, says any information on NPA or the National Social Investment Program will be issued through the appropriate federal government channels. All right, now as the outcry against rape and sexual violence continues, civil societies in Oyo State have lent their voices in a conference tagged Gender-Based Violence and Child Protection Prevention Advocacy, and that happened in Ibadan. Grace Bamidele was there.
Watching in horror the latest surge in the cases of sexual abuse in the country, and Oyo State in particular, Association for Women Orientations for Sustainable Development in Nigeria, AWON, alongside other civil societies and networks, organized a conference to address issues and call on government at all levels to take decisive action on the rising rape cases.
We are advocating with governments to designate and strengthen child protection and gender-based violence responders and the organization and government agencies as being essential and ensure that they are operational in all communities.
We have helplines, reports on the, call a helpline. Any of the NGOs around will come around, we work with the government, and from there the issue can be taken up.
Even if you are taking care of your girl child, take care of your boy child, so that they will not disturb the girls.
Association for Women Orientations for Sustainable Development in Nigeria is a coalition of various bodies of women organizations advocating an end to sexual violence, intimate partner violence, mental health, and HIV infections, amongst others, in Ibadan. Grace Bamdele, NTA News.
And the former Deputy Chief Imam of Egbaland, Sheikh Sadulahi Bamigbola, has been unanimously adopted by the Egba Muslim community in Ogun State as the new Chief Imam of Egbaland. Lukman Adefeso witnessed the brief ceremony at the Egba Central Mosque, Kobiti, Abeokuta.
The passing of Chief Imam of Egbaland and President General League of Imams and Alfas in Yoruba Land, Edo and Delta, Liadi Orunsolu, created a vacuum, and who becomes the next Imam was the question on the lips of many Muslims. Now the Muslim communities have searched and found who the cap fits. He is Alhaji Sadatul Bamigbola. He was unanimously adopted in a peaceful process to lead in accordance with Islamic injunction.
We in Egba have done excellently well as deputy, and the people of Egbaland have thought it fit to now bestow the honor of Chief Imam of Egbaland on our son.
You can see today that everybody, all sections of Egbaland supported his candidature.
This new Chief Imam of Egbaland is a man of activities. Is a man of wisdom.
The new Chief Imam, Bamigbola, who hails from Ikoroake in Abeokuta, is the first to be appointed Chief Imam of Egbaland from his community. He appealed for support and assured the people that he will lead with the fear of God.
Right, time for us now to take a look at sports. And Amazimakos reports on the reaction of Nigerian-born Bahraini athlete